whatever happens. I don't think I ever tracked it, but my mom did, and she would use a calendar. Those days are over. Now, many, many, many millions of women are using these Track My Cycle apps. And so marketers can partner with these apps and actually serve marketing messages and ads through these apps specifically on days when we know that women are going to be more receptive to a particular kind of product. And the company marketers have no idea about individual cycles. They don't have to know any of that information. It's all based on the women's own data. Much like how the application Waze, I don't know if you guys use Waze, I do, it's a GPS app, and it knows when I'm near McDonald's. It's a Dunkin' Donuts, and then it serves me a, stop now for this. Same kind of idea. So that's one way we're able to use this knowledge about how hormones influence women's consumer choices. But what about the workplace? Well, this has yet to be studied, but the workplace environments can enhance female competition, and if women are ovulating, this is likely to be increased even more. Here's why. Across human history, men have controlled the resources, and women have competed with each other and behaved toward men in ways to try to procure those resources. In the early days, thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago, this was for protection, for shelter, and for food. And in some ways, it's still slightly related to that. But the motivation to compete with each other and behave toward men in certain ways is still with us. So if you think about how many leadership teams at companies are comprised, it's usually many men and maybe a few women. And when leadership teams are comprised much like this, you will see more female competition in the workplace. Women are going to compete with each other. They're going to be less likely to champion one another. Why? Because we want the promotions too. We want the rewards too. So if we see sexism in the workplace, if we see other women being treated poorly, what we often do is distance ourselves from the situation and distance ourselves from that other woman, the opposite of what we should be doing. And why are we doing that anyway? Well, our survival used to depend on it. This is what we call an adaptation. Female competition is as hardwired into our brain as our desire for fat and sugar. Thousands of years ago, fat and sugar were very, very scarce in our environments, but we needed them in our diet. We needed fat and sugar. We were endowed with a strong desire to eat chocolate cake. The desire to eat more chocolate cake than carrots is an adaptation because we needed the motivation to get up off our keisters and go procure fat and sugars. So now we have a number of different problems because we still are carrying that desire for fat and sugar, but we still have that desire to compete with each other. And where we might find a sweet spot is in organizations that have more women in leadership roles. And not to completely sideline men, we need men, but we need men who actually reward women, who support other women, who reward women for coming into the arena and engaging in debate and pushing innovation forward. So before I close here, I want to go back to my introductory figure. And I want to tell you very quickly that the results that I talked about in the earlier studies are those that we've documented in heterosexual women. But lesbian women still ovulate. They still have the same fluctuations in hormones across the cycle. So the effects that I've outlined would still be present in lesbian women, only the sexual desire would be toward different targets. But what's very important is that the effects that I've outlined would be absent in women on hormonal birth control. So we would not see the effects that I've outlined because hormonal birth control actually suppresses the normal fluctuations of hormones across the cycle. Women on hormonal birth control do not ovulate. So those peaks in hormones you would not see. That increase in sexual desire, when you're on hormonal birth control, you do not see that. So hormonal birth control influences estrogen and progesterone, also cortisol and adrenaline. So the normal excitement that you get from even things like Christmas Eve and even things like roller coasters is going to be muted on hormonal birth control. So I was on birth control for many, many, many years. So, and if you are on birth control or thinking about going on birth control, I encourage you to read up on some of the behavioral effects and outcomes. My talk was about mind and body, mind over body. Well, mind and body go hand in hand, but I have a piece of good news for you. We have a part of our brain that makes us uniquely human. It's called the prefrontal cortex. It sits right behind our forehead, and it gives us the ability to find workarounds to course correct for our most base level desire. We don't go around as mindlessly eating chocolate cake or stuffing our face with McDonald's French fries, sometimes, but not always. We can find workarounds for that. And so there is hope we can find workarounds for other base level desires as well, like our desire to compete with other women. We can find workarounds for that and a better way forward, but the only way to do that, or I like to think of it as something that gives us a lot of